We are at the legendary Horseshoe Tavern, and there have been so many great acts that have been through here. You were here as a teenager watching.
Yeah, I was here at first getting my fake ID denied at the door. I grew up down the street. My parents live at College in Spadina, and we're at Queen in Spadina. And yeah, this is a legendary place. I went to so many formative shows over the years that really taught me how to perform.
So what bands come to mind?
Ooh, I saw the Constantines, Joel Plaskett, Emergency, a lot of great Canadian bands.
Yeah.
I saw Joel Plaskett do his record Truthfully, top to bottom. And Arkells started to play here pretty shortly after we started the band. And I remember thinking, I was like, this is unreal that I get to play on the same stage as my heroes.
You talk a lot about Canadian indie bands in particular, and now you have, with Arkells, played across this country. All kinds of, you met lots of people. And we've been asking some prominent Canadians that kind of at this moment in time to reflect on what it means to be Canadian, what Canada means to them.
I think in our case, I really think about the people in the community that have bothered to set up shop and host a music venue like this. And you know, I can go through all the different towns across Canada and all the little clubs we played at, and I can think of, oh, there's Bernard who ran the Starlight in Waterloo, and Tony who called the Office in London, and Brody who ran the Casbah in Hamilton. And I think I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I'm like, if not for those people, we wouldn't have had a place to play. And I think about that a lot. It's like people can make a difference. People can really make a difference.
It's interesting because those are little pieces of Canadian culture that I don't think I really appreciated until you said that. The fact that without concert venues that are bringing in Canadian bands, those are little slices of Canadiana we wouldn't otherwise have.
Totally, and also it's fun, I think, for a lot of people to go to the big shows, go to Massey Hall and go to Budweiser Stage or go to see a show in an arena. But those acts don't get there without getting good here. So it's like, I know you might pass a music venue and go, is this for me, or it sounds loud, or the band seems young and disorganized, or maybe it's not quite for you. But it's so important that people show up, because we played here like 100 times before we got to get to the next venue up. And if not for this breeding ground, then we wouldn't have a chance to play at Scotiabank Arena, where we played in Toronto.
Speaking of Canadian moments, at the Junos in Vancouver, Michael Bublé shouted you out, said you were...
I think you're one of the greatest frontmen on the whole planet, let alone Canada. I love the Arkells. And my sisters are up there and they agree with me, man.
Thank you very much.
What was that like?
Bublé's been very kind, very encouraging to our band. And yeah, a little bit of validation, you know, can put a spring in your step for the next day. But yeah, I don't know. I always look to people who are generous in spirit, and Bublé is definitely that.
And I talked to Erica M. because she had posted something on Instagram about how down to earth and nice Bublé was. But then when I talked to her, she mentioned you as well. She said how proud she was of the Canadian artists that she met in Vancouver and how they embodied the things that she would hope that Canadians embody, kindness being chief among them.
Yeah, well, I think most Canadian musicians realize what a precious job it is. If you can do it full time, and if you can pay your rent by playing original music, you are so lucky. Like, really, there's a tiny fraction of musicians that can say they do that. And so if you have it, you really recognize that it's the people who are showing up to buy a ticket to your concert or say hi to you in the street that are the ones paying your bills. So we're very aware, and we're also aware that it doesn't, you know, it's not a given. You're not entitled to the job, and so I think the least you can do is be friendly, I suppose.
I mean, friendly, like you and your band have this extraordinary reputation of connecting with your fans. So let's talk about that a little bit. First of all, at venues, like I often wonder whether it's athletes at a game or musicians on stage. Do you actually see people in the stands?
Yeah, you know, I'm always looking for things in the crowd that might set the show off in a different direction. And I think that's what makes the show interesting to me, if somebody's holding up a sign with a special request. This one moment happened in Edmonton, and it was probably 2015. We were playing this love song, My Heart's Always Yours. It's like an emotional song. In the bridge, there's a breakdown where it's just a pulsing kick drum. I get to talk to the crowd a little bit, talk about what it means to be with them on that night. And I looked in the crowd and I saw 9 dudes, all maybe early 20s, arm in arm, swaying back and forth. I was like, what a sight. 9 male friends, just arm in arm, swaying side to side to this love song. So I said, all right, everybody in the crowd, and there was probably 5,000 people there. I see some people arm in arm, everybody arm in arm. And then the whole crowd became arm in arm. And that has become the tradition at all Arkells shows during that song ever since. How are we doing up on this side? You guys okay? And so there's magic that happens if you're paying attention.
And you pay attention, seeing them in person, you pay attention online as well. People direct message you.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, yeah, we get lots of interesting requests. I will say, I think our fan base is like pretty well adjusted. Sometimes you hear about kind of crazy fans, and that would seem like a lot for a band like ours. But I mean, we hear the most interesting stories. We get asked to perform at a lot of weddings, and we happened to be in St. John's, Newfoundland last year. We played a big show with Nickelback in front of 15,000 people. But we heard from a fan that they were getting married that night and couldn't make the show, but they were using one of our songs as their first dance. So I said, where's the wedding going to be? He said, oh, we're getting married at the Delta Hotel. And then I was like, we're staying at the Delta. And we showed up and we played a song for them when we got off stage back to the hotel at around midnight. I know it sounds very, I don't know, maybe it sounds charitable or altruistic. I'm also trying to be entertained. Like, I think there's so much in connecting with people in unusual ways. Yeah. And it makes my day more interesting.
Yeah, imagine if they didn't care. Imagine if you wandered in with a guitar and it's kind of like, excuse me, this is a private event.
Yeah. Can you leave, sir? We're trying to dance to the Macarena.
Let's talk about this book, Tryhard. Why that title? Why those words?
Well, I think early on, when I was like a teenager, I always felt a little reluctant about who I was, because I was a very eager person. I was a very enthusiastic person. I really wanted to be involved, and wanting to be in the music scene was sort of antithetical to that, because being in a cool band means you're a little bit distant, that you're maybe a little bit removed, maybe you're a little bit hard to talk to. And as I was like, okay, who am I? Like, am I going to be a cool band guy, or am I going to be myself? But as the band got together in Hamilton and we started to work really hard, and I was sort of fearless in reaching out. I was like, I'd email the people at the Horseshoe. I'd email different venues around the province saying, can we get a gig? Can we get a gig? I realized that being a Tryhard kind of was paying off, because the band eventually got signed and we got to open for big bands and we were on our way in our career. And our agent, Jack Ross, said something to me that I think has really rung true, which is some bands, especially young bands, play for the bands watching side stage, and some bands play for the people who bought a ticket in front of them. And I always want to be someone who plays for the people that bought a ticket, and not too worried about oh, does so-and-so think I'm cool? So anyway, I'm taking the term back. Tryhard. Anybody who gets anywhere, got to do it.
So I didn't actually know that this was a term until I heard you talk about it. And
oh, you never heard the term Tryhard?
No, but it's kind of it's a negative.
Yeah, it's a pejorative. Oh, that guy's a Tryhard. I don't think it's a cool term. But, I'll give you an example though. I feel like in a creative pursuit, there's so much value to momentum. Because it's so easy to get slowed down. You can run to writer's block, or you don't want to send that email to your manager because you're annoyed, or your bandmate because you're annoyed. There's so many reasons to get slowed down. But I'm a real believer in how do you keep the thing going? And a few weeks ago, there was a great documentary on CBC about Blue Rodeo. Mm-hmm. And I emailed Jim Cuddy just to say, hi, I'm really enjoying this documentary. Jim got back to me in 12 minutes. Via email. And Jim's always got back to me really quick. And I began to think, I was like, oh, I think probably one of the reasons why a band like Blue Rodeo has had the career and longevity they have, is because like Jim's like a workhorse. Jim has energy, and not only does he have a great voice and is a talented songwriter, but there's a momentum that he maintains, and so I'd call him a tryhard too.
This is a good lesson for me because I start lots of emails by saying, I'm sorry I kind of didn't reply to your email 6 months ago. And
but you're a tryhard. You look at your long career. You're doing just fine. I wouldn't be hard on yourself.
Okay. Your ability to kind of seize the moment or give things a shot seems to have dated back till at least grade 7. I love the story of you calling up the Toronto Raptors. Yeah. Imagine that, little, 12-year-old Max calling up the Toronto Raptors for an interview.
So I went to this great public school at College in Spadina. It's right behind the Comfort Zone. It's like an all after hours like nightclub, but our schoolyard was just behind it. And I was obsessed with the Toronto Raptors. And the teacher, Miss Janes, proud Newfoundlander, she said, interview somebody in the community that has a job that you want one day. And most of the kids like went to the fire hall or talked to the guy running the pizza shop. I was like, that seems kind of boring. I want to meet Vince Carter. So I opened the back of the phone book. I went to the back where the businesses were, and I looked up the newly opened Scotiabank Arena. It was 1999.
So Air Canada Centre.
Air Canada Centre. Oh, sorry, Air
Yep.
Canada Centre.
Yep.
And I said, the secretary picked up. I said, can I please speak to Mr. Glenn Grunwald, who is the general manager of the team?
And this is a 12-year-old boy's voice.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they must have been so confused that they just put me through. And I got to meet Glenn Grunwald, and he gave me an interview on the phone, and then he had me down to the arena, and he gave me a tour. And the whole time I was thinking, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, all I kind of have to do is just ask and see what happens. And it's an instinct that served me well. And I don't assume anybody owes me anything. The point of that story is not to go into every interaction thinking that, like, you know, somebody owes me their time. Most of the time, these ideas go nowhere. But sometimes they work out great. And it's interesting because 20 years later, I had the same instinct. The Raptors had just won the championship. We had a show at Budweiser Stage. It was sold out, 16,000 people. And I did the same thing. I just picked up the phone, called the Raptors. I said, does Nick Nurse, the head coach, want to join us on stage for a song?
Because you'd seen him lugging around a guitar.
I'd seen him lugging around a guitar. And he showed up to sound check, and we played Stevie Wonder, Signed, Sealed, Delivered.
And he killed it.
And he killed it. And we've been friends ever since. Actually, I heard from Nick this morning. He's going to come up to our Hamilton show.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you gather friends. I personally would find that exhausting. You find it, what, energizing?
I find it amusing. I think I just find it interesting. But here's the other thing, too, is because I'm hearing from you, like, oh, that I couldn't do that. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people could do that or want to do that. But the thing is, with somebody like me, I can do that naturally, but I need so many people around me to make the whole thing work. So that's just what I happen to be able to like bring to the group. I can go, hey guys, I met somebody recently and we're gonna do something fun with them. But I don't know how to drum. I don't know how to make t-shirts. Mike in our band, he's our guitarist, but he's also our graphic designer. I don't know how to like run Pro Tools, but like Tony, our keyboardist, he's an amazing audio engineer. And so it's like, that's why I like being part of a team. And, you know, we're both sports guys. It's like on a basketball court, one person can bring up the ball. Another person's sort of responsible for getting more rebounds. One person's responsible for shutting down the other team's best player. One person's responsible for scoring, you know, like, or has outsized job in those categories. Mm-hmm. And that's what being in a band is. That's what being a part of a creative group is that like everybody can find their lane if it's done right.
Let's talk about being a band in 2025. There was a time when you'd be signed to a record label and you would try to write radio singles and they would be on there and they would sell the album and I'd go to the record store and buy the album. Things are different now. How do you make a go of it in 2025? You
know, I think people who came up in the old world have a hard time readjusting to this idea that you're not going to like hire a marketing department to put out content for you. It's like the best stuff and the artists that resonate the most are the ones who are making their own content. I think for us, we're comfortable because that's sort of always the way we've operated. We've always been we design our own merch. We've always been in charge of our own social media. like I think we like the day-to-day grind of it. And so it's definitely different. And you need things to balance out your life so you're not always sitting on TikTok all day long. But that's just another creative riddle to solve.
Nobody gets me like you do. Calgary, beautiful day.
So we have this request line for our upcoming shows.
There's dogs available at New Hope Rescue, named after us.
And if this social experiment taught us anything, is that you can trust Arkells fans. Even writing this book allowed me to like spend the first 3-4 hours of the day not online. And then when I was done writing in the morning, I could go, okay, maybe what TikTok do I need to make today that would feel interesting and authentic to who I am? And so, I don't know. I think that there's a way. I think we're all, as creative people, we're all trying to like get that equilibrium just right. And it is difficult in some ways because social media is this addictive thing, but there are ways to do it.
So do you try to, first of all, as a writer, as a musician, are you trying to write a hit?
Oh, when it comes to the actual music, there used to be gatekeepers, right? So like the label had a relationship with the radio station, and like the program director and the head of your label would go out for dinner, and they'd schmooze with each other, and then you'd cross your fingers that your band's name was mentioned. Mm-hmm. And that's really how things worked. Now, the winds of the zeitgeist can blow in any direction, and it's often very unpredictable. So there are certain songs that have become famous that came out 12 years ago that are now having a big moment, and it's very hard to predict. And it's a little unsettling in that way, but it's also inspiring that like something you do could catch wind in a cool way.
So that's the music writing part of it. Let's go back to social media part of it. When you do a TikTok video, are you trying to dance your way to a hit?
No, that's right. I think at first when TikTok was introduced to the world and became a part of our daily duties, it's like, do I have to dance? Do I have to do these like, voiceover like lip sync thing? But then I realized like, no, it can just be a tool for storytelling. It can just be a tool. It's just a medium for storytelling if you want it to be. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it has also been really great to see bands that feel like a little left of center find an audience in a significant way. So when it comes to the songwriting, I think it's liberated us to go like, no, you just have to do the thing that feels like authentic and true to who you are. And you don't have to worry about like the radio department saying like, does this sound like a radio hit? Because there's no such thing anymore.
It's interesting you described yourself as a creative person as opposed to a musician who's written a book.
Yeah.
You see yourself as more than just a musician.
I don't even see myself as a musician. Sometimes people on the plane, you'll have a conversation with the person next to you and they'll ask, oh, what do you do? And I go, I guess I'm a musician. I have a hard time saying it.
And why is that?
Just because I think I feel like I know real musicians who can actually play their instruments really well, and I go, no, that guy's a real musician. That guy went to school for music, and I didn't. I think of myself as somebody who just has creative urges, and I walk toward those urges all day long, every day. And sometimes it's like sitting down to work on a book. Sometimes it's sitting down to work on something on the piano. Sometimes it's calling Mike in our band about what should the merch look like this summer. Sometimes it's calling a friend to like work through something I want to say on stage that night. So it's just like I just have things that I'm drawn to, and then it's a matter of figuring out the creative riddle.
I'm imagining what a guidance counselor would say to the young Max.
Oh my God.
If you mention this to him. You can make a living doing this, indulging your creative urges?
Yeah, but I think a lot of it is just, I don't know. I think there's like an energy and a level of enthusiasm that anybody can bring to a room. And people, I've been doing this book tour, and people have been asking, oh, what advice do you have for like a young creative person? And a lot of it's just like, it's like there's a lot of talented people out there, but it's like, what is the energy that you bring to a room? And if you bring the right kind of energy and you want to help and you want to be a part of a team, then you'll continue to get hired. And I think for me, is like if I have a talent, it's just being enthusiastic.
Then there's the importance of having good parents. You talked about the influence they've had on you. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, my parents love me just the right amount, not too much. You know, if they love you too much, that's a problem. And if they don't love you enough, that's a problem. They've hit the sweet spot. They're great. My dad had parents in show business. My dad grew up in New York City, and his dad was an actor, and his mom was a writer, and they had a variety show together. And I've been doing this book tour, and it's turned into a bit of a variety show. It's not like a sit-down conversation. And I was thinking, oh, isn't that interesting? Even though my dad wasn't in entertainment at all, he's a social worker. You know, that's been passed down in some way. But yeah, they get a kick out of it all. My mom for a while was worried, but I haven't asked her for money in a long time, so it's okay.
Side story, real quick, and then we'll get to the question. I have a weird obsession with the city of Detroit. I've always been interested in going there. Never went to Detroit until last October. One of the things we did there was a show on NPR, and the NPR studio is on the campus of Wayne State University.
There you go.
Your dad went to Wayne State University and was a college DJ.
Yeah. So my dad went to Wayne State University in Detroit. It was the only university that he could get into. But he had a great time. And he wrote for like the local weekly paper. And he also hosted a show on the radio station. And he met lots of people. He had these like Sunday brunches where he'd order in the Sunday New York Times and have like a bagels and lox spread. And he was just part of an interesting community. So my dad trucked around these vinyl records for the rest of his adult life. He started a family in Toronto, and my earliest memories are listening to the Beatles and Motown because he had those vinyls from his radio show. And I was just obsessed with the Temptations and the Beatles and Smokey Robinson and the Supremes. And actually, it's interesting that we're sitting here because Arkells have a secret Motown set that we play on special occasion, and we've done it at the Horseshoe. And you know, it was one of these things where it's like most rock bands that we came up with would, like, if they're going to cover a song, they're going to cover Neil Young or the Rolling Stones. And I was like, everyone's doing that. What do I love? And what I love is Tracks of My Tears by Smokey Robinson.
Yeah.
You know, like what I love is Ain't Too Proud to Beg. You know, what I love is Ain't No Mountain High Enough. And we played those songs and we learned those songs, and it was a huge part of our musical education. And we can bust them out on a dime if we need to.
Smokey Robinson has that sweet high voice. Can you do that?
No, no, absolutely not. Yeah, hopefully people find our version charming.
So I think about Max Kerman from the grade 7 guy who had the guile to call the Raptors, to somebody who was lucky enough to have parents who obviously had a great influence on you, and you're a hard worker and you're obviously talented. So there's all of that. But then I think about luck. You ran into your bandmates at McMaster at the beginning of first year.
Yeah.
Had that not happened, what would you be doing right now?
Oh my goodness. That's a great question. I think I'm very aware of my limitations, and I know what I'm interested in and I know what I'm not good at. So I think whatever it is that I would do, it would be part of a team, because I just like desperately need people around. And it's also just more fun to share experiences that way.
But would it have been a band?
Would it have been a band? It would have been some creative pursuit, and I hope I would be self-employed, because if I had to be an employee somewhere, I'd be the worst employee of all time. If I have to do something I don't want to do, I require a nap immediately.
Well, you can have your nap now. It's been fantastic talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian.